أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد. The campaign of Muhammad sallam carrying the dawah started to increase. Now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordered Muhammad sallam to take the dawah to the next level, the initial response from the Quraysh was such that they thought it was very unusual for a man to claim the element of the Tawheed, the oneness of God, and basically attack their own gods. And the first initial reaction for them was that they weren't really that interested and they just left him to his own devices. But as Muhammad ﷺ started converting people and they started to see initially, let's say the slaves, or they started seeing the poor that started to follow him, not such a big deal. But when you start getting affluent individuals, women and the men who were rich, who were wealthy, who used to come in and out of Makkah trading, this became a bit of a problem because in those days, there was a big diversity in classes. If you were rich, everybody listened to you. If you were poor, nobody gave a damn. So if you followed a particular religion or you had a certain habit or had a certain view, if you were poor, nobody cared. But if you were rich, you were wealthy and you were powerful, then people did care because you now have influence. Why? Because money talks. If you have the ability and you have power and you have control, everybody looks up to you. Everybody wants to be part of you. And you know how people are like. If you have a little bit of money, people do anything just to kind of get in with your clique or somehow to get in with your sphere of influence. So this started becoming a big problem. Now, we talked about some of the influential people. Last week we talked about Abu Talib, the uncle of Muhammad sallam, which was unusual because Abu Talib being the uncle of Muhammad sallam, even though he was an idolater, he wasn't a Muslim, but he fully supported Muhammad sallam. He actually protected Muhammad sallam from all the other leaders of the Quraysh. So the Quraysh is a tribe that's in Makkah. And those leaders, they wanted to protect their rights. They wanted to protect their benefit, their interest in that location. And Muhammad sallam talking about this tawheed and the cheating in the market and not worshipping the idols. Because remember, worshipping the idols, buying idols, having a mobile idol, asking the certain priests to govern those idols to do certain things was all money-making scheme for them. And Muhammad sallam, this man's walking around, he's trashing all these idols. So it didn't impact them just from a religious perspective, it impacted them economically. And that was eventually going to lead to a political issue for them as well. So everything always starts small. So one of the other characters, besides Abu Talib, who gave his support to Muhammad sallam, was the enemies of Muhammad sallam, who also happened to be his relatives. People like Abu Lahab, which was his other uncle. And we talked about how he was a staunch enemy of Islam. The other one was Abu Jahl. Now, Abu Jahl was a leader. He was a very smart guy. Abu al-Hakam, his name was. And he was a very smart individual amongst the leaders of the Quraysh. As a matter of fact, he was so smart, he was the one that pretty much helped in their modern days put Makkah on the map against all the other tribes. He established a reputation of the Meccans across Syria, across the Roman Empire, across the Persian Empire, across with the Abyssinians. So they had a status where people respected them, they wanted to trade with them and so forth. So they looked up to him and they respected him a lot. But Abu Jahl knew that this thing that Muhammad sallam is starting, this talk about Tawheed, the oneness of God, and berating all of their ancestral culture, all of the ideas, the viewpoint. And you get that today. You've probably experienced. If you ever talk to your elder community, if you're from a Pakistani community or Bangladeshi community, if you ever talk about some of the cultures we have and you would start attacking them, they get very defensive. They don't like it. And it all depends how far you want to go with the conversation, because you could take it pretty far and then it could get into a full-blown battle. Everybody, next thing you know, your name's being trashed against through that whole family and the whole community. That such and such is saying this, we used to do this all the time in our families. I remember a long time ago, for anyone to think about getting married outside the family was a big no-no. And if you'd done it, the whole community talk about such and such got married outside the family. This is wrong. This is bad. But now, alhamdulillah, things have changed because people become more knowledgeable about certain things. But the point being, when there is a certain status quo, there's a certain level of understanding, people find it very, very hard to change their habits. And they don't like change. So Abu Jahl, when the campaign of the Dawah started to pick up, he became quite defensive. And his defensive point got to a level that, other than verbally talking to the Quraysh and that what he called the council, the leaders, and saying we need to calm him down a little bit, the first attempt was go speak to his uncle, who loves him, respects him, and say, Abu Talib, you have a word with him. But that did not work out. Muhammad ﷺ now began to pray in public. So he started coming towards the Kaaba, and that's where he used to pray. Now, just so everybody understands, that during the early stages of Islam, Muhammad ﷺ used to pray, the Muslims used to pray towards Jerusalem, Al-Quds, not the Kaaba. But Muhammad ﷺ had this affection for the Kaaba because it was the house of Allah, but made by Ibrahim, Islam, that he knew that this was a very prestigious and represented Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the order wasn't there. So Muhammad ﷺ, every time he used to pray on the side. So Kaaba is obviously a cube. So he used to pray on the side, which would point towards Jerusalem. So he would position himself behind the Kaaba effectively. So he's praying towards the Kaaba and Jerusalem. He didn't have to do that. He could actually just go 2 miles away and point towards Jerusalem. But he would always make sure he would pray by the Kaaba. So he's pointing towards the Kaaba and Jerusalem in that direction. And this used to irritate them. That's like, if you then go to city centre of probably the most racist place in England or anywhere in Europe, and you decide to get your prayer mat out and start praying right in the middle there, you're making a point about something, effectively. If there are people who do not like Islam and do not like your religion because they have a misunderstanding of what Islam represents, you are terrorists, you are ISIS, you are this, you chain your women up, you treat people badly, you're a terrorist, then by the mere action of you going there and praying, for them, it's like seeing you support them and you're openly declaring your support for all of this. Now, for the Quraysh, when Muhammad ﷺ would do this, that's like saying, I openly declare my rejection of your idols. I openly declare my rejection of your customs. And I believe in Islam. And they were like, okay, it's one thing going in and doing it at your own home or doing it privately, but you have the nerve to come out in public to do this? So this made Abu Jahl very angry. And Abu Jahl sat around with the council, said, if I see Muhammad ﷺ coming to that Kaaba, if I see him rubbing his face in dirt, that's the disrespect he gave the Salah, I will walk over there and I will trample his neck and break it. Lo and behold, as they're having this conversation, Muhammad ﷺ turns up and he makes his way to the Kaaba. He kisses the black stone, he makes the tawaf, and then he gets ready and he starts to pray. So the council is standing there. Well, Abu Jahl, you made the point. Go ahead, do what you're going to do. Now remember one thing. Muhammad ﷺ has come from a very powerful family, the Banu Hashim. They're a very prestigious family in Makkah. So nobody really wants to pick a fight with them. Let's say in Slough there's 6 families that are very powerful. You don't want to pick a fight. You don't want to start trouble. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to go all the way, or someone's going to have to pay a price. Something's going to happen. So you don't just go in willy-nilly. You can do it to the poorer families. You can do it to the poorer individuals. You can do it to the miskin. You can do it to the people who don't have money. But if you're a powerful entity as a group or family, you don't really do that. Some of those Quraysh didn't want to do that. They were like, Abu Jahl, you go, let's see you do this. So Abu Jahl made his way to Muhammad ﷺ, stomping his feet right towards him. And he was unable to get any further towards Muhammad ﷺ. And when he came back, the Quraysh had asked him, what happened to you? He said, didn't you see that there was this stallion, a camel-faced like stallion, black, red eyes, fangs coming out? It prevented me. There was a state of complete terror. There was like a gap between him and me, hallucination, starting hallucinating. Allah Ta'ala put it in him. Because the actual hadith talks about the Abbas, the uncle of Muhammad ﷺ, heard Abu Jahl say this, and he told Muhammad ﷺ that this is what Abu Jahl said, he's going to come and trample your neck. And Muhammad ﷺ responded back to him that if he comes any close to me, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order Angel Jibreel to send these Zanabiyah to attack them. And the Zanabiyah are the angels from hell, and they only leave by the permission of Allah from the hell, and they will tear him apart in public. So that prevented him. So he didn't go any further. Then there was another case. They didn't just stop there. They wanted to upgrade their attack. They wanted to show, we're not going to let this guy get the best of us. So the second situation that occurred was when they agreed when the Quraysh was sitting together. Now, what used to happen is you have the Kaaba, and it's the city center. People are coming. There's markets around different places. People are moving in and out. People are doing their tawaf. So people are coming from the outside that are traveling. They would enter into Makkah. They would do the tawaf. They would meet their people. They do the trade. So the gathering of the leaders of the Quraysh used to be just a little bit away from the Kaaba. And they used to gather there and they used to have their council and they'd talk about different things, whether it be about politics, whether it be about the economics. But recently, it was all about this man, Muhammad. So once again, they saw Muhammad ﷺ praying and they couldn't have their conversation about other subjects because watching Muhammad ﷺ pray from the corner of their eye began to irritate Abu Jahl even more. Who will take the placenta, the inside of a camel? So when the she camel has given birth, all of the insides of the camel, they fall out. They will say, who would take the placenta, the inside of the dirty gut of that she camel and throw it on him to humiliate him? Because that is a statement that he's got no control and power. So when people see that, if for a second they were taking him seriously, if there was an outsider that came in and had a conversation with Muhammad sallallahu and said, "Oh, I'm very interested in what you're saying," and the next minute you humiliate that person, you've lost that power, right? You've lost that ability of your influence because now someone's thinking, "Oh, so you're not that really important, are you? Look at the way they treat you." So you could be mad because no one treats you that way unless you were mad, right? You know how kids tend to pick on, people who aren't so, or fortunate, and they will start picking on them because they can't attack back because it shows that you're more control over them. They didn't like that. Muhammad sallam goes into sujood. And Utbah bin Abu Muayt was the one who said, I will do it. He walked over and he picked up the placenta. And the moment Muhammad sallam went into sujood, and he threw it all over from his head down to his back. And they stood back and they laughed their heads off. They literally laughed their heads off. The hadith goes on to say they were laughing so much that they started tripping over each other. They thought it was the most hilarious thing. And everyone else stood standing around. Some were looking, astonished. Some were giggling, some were laughing. But the Quraysh who planned all of this, they were over the moon. They just thought it was the most funniest thing. The daughter of Muhammad sallam, Hazrat Fatima, from a distance saw this. Any daughter who sees their parents humiliated will not be able to stand for that. That is the worst insult. And I'll remind you that this happens to Muslim parents around the world in unfortunate places where the Muslims are being terrorized by armies and soldiers and by the communities you know about Rohingya, and think about Palestine, you think about Kashmir. Those children are having to watch their parents get kicked in the teeth, getting butted by guns in their head, getting shot in the face. But it doesn't leave a confidence in any child. And Fatima was so hurt by this and she was so angry. She went over to Muhammad. Muhammad stayed in sujood, did not break his salah. She cleaned off all the dirt, threw it off. And as she was cleaning this dirt, she looked back at them and she cursed them very, very strongly. Then at that moment in time, when Muhammad got up, Muhammad had never ever cursed the Quraysh. Because in every situation that Muhammad was in, even Taif, you remember, the way they treated him in Taif and they kicked him out, Allah Ta'ala sent Angel Jibreel, and Angel Jibreel said to Muhammad sallam, you give me the order. The way they've treated you, tell me now, the two mountains that are around their valley of Taif, I will collapse them on them and finish them. Because other prophets have ordered this from the angels to destroy this community or this ummah because of their negligence and their ignorance and the jahiliyyah. But Muhammad said, no, I will not want to do that for the chance that their children will grow up to become Muslim. This is the kind of mercy that he had, except in this one particular situation, that Muhammad ﷺ became so angry and he looked at them and he raised up his hand. Oh Allah, take away Utbah bin Rabi'ah. Oh Allah, take away Shayba bin Rabi'ah. Oh Allah, take away Abu Jahl bin Hisham. Take away Uqba bin Abu Muayt. Take away Umayyah bin Khalaf. That Muhammad ﷺ, when he stood there and they looked at him, and as he said this, the angel was pointing at every one of them. Him, who else? And him. And the Sahabi went on to say that I swear by Allah, all 7 of them never passed the battle of Badr. They all got killed. That was a dua that Muhammad SAW put against them. And the reason why is because every prophet that ever set foot on this earth, every prophet has a level of humility, has a level of dignity, because they are developed in such a way that they care and they're very sensitive. Because you can't be a prophet if you're not sensitive. Because to do the work that you do, you got to care about your ummah. You cannot be stone cold. Got to be able to feel for your ummah, to stand up for the rights of the poor, to stand for the rights of those miskeens. What you would feel if something like that happened to you, Muhammad will feel it 100 times more. So you can just imagine the pain he felt when he was treated in that manner. Just as an idea, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected Muhammad sallallahu. He ensured that though they tried to create harm, that there was a point that they will not go beyond it. The harm that they used to do to Muhammad is in different ways. If you go to school, growing up, or even if you go to work, people try to harm you in different ways. The first basic one is that they mock you. You go to school and look at him, look at the way he dressed, look at his color, etc., etc. They will start to mock you. If that doesn't work, you're still standing strong. Then they up their attack. They try to do character assassination. They start making lies about you. And if that doesn't work and you're still standing, then they start to question you. They try to humiliate you. They try to get into an argument with you and they try to put you on the spot. And if that doesn't work, then they up their game. They try to physically harm you. All of these attempts were made against Muhammad sallallahu, but they were done at different levels with different people around Muhammad sallallahu. So some of the Sahabi, if you were poor, it's not a problem. We're going to smash you. We're going to teach you a lesson. Abu Jahl was so bad in punishing his slaves. Amr bin Yasir, Yasir his father, Sumayya his mother, Amr the son. All three were slaves. And they used to torture them so bad that Abu Jahl became so angry because they became Muslim. They wouldn't revert back to their religion, that he took a spear and he stabbed the mother of Amr bin Yasir. And one thing you will learn, that when you go for the Seerah, some of the Sahabi never fully recovered from seeing this torture against their parents. Umar al-Khattab, when he used to be a Khalif, he used to gather Sahabi. He used to be such a beautiful character. He had such a great personality and was put in such high esteem by Muhammad sallallahu, that Muhammad sallallahu even said, if there was to be another prophet after me, it would be Umar bin Khattab. But there is no more prophets after me. Umar bin Khattab was the kind of character that even after Muhammad sallallahu passed away, he would always think about Muhammad sallallahu. But a great leader is those person, any great man, any great woman, is those who remember their humble dwellings where they came from. You could be a millionaire today, but you remember where you came from. Umar al-Khattab was a great, powerful leader, but he remembered where he came from. You know the famous story when they opened up Syria. Umar al-Khattab, when he was a Khalif, he sent the army to Syria. So when they took over and they beat the Romans, they said, give us the keys of the land. They said, we will not give it to you until Umar bin Khattab comes to get, the Khalif comes. They never seen the Khalif. So Umar bin Khattab traveled. He left Medina with his slave. Him and his slave. Not an entourage of 1,000 people or people carrying him. One camel, and they shared the ride. He would ride it for an hour, then they'll swap, and then Umar bin Khattab would ride it for an hour. Then they would swap, and Umar bin Khattab would walk. When they came into Syria, or the Roman Empire, the slave was riding, and he said to Umar bin Khattab, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, it is not befitting for me to sit on this camel going in. You're the Khalif. They should see that you're the Khalif. No, it is your turn, and you're going to ride in." And they rode in, and they came running to the slave, and they started giving him blessings and this and that. And the slave was so embarrassed. It's not me. That's the Khalif. And they could not believe it, because Umar Khattab used to always wear the tatters, the clothes. That's how humble he was. So coming back to my point, Umar Khattab, the way he used to keep remembrance of where he came from, we should learn from this lesson. Umar Khattab used to gather the Sahabi, you know, the old school Sahabi, not the new ones, not the children. He used to say, send them out. And he used to sit with them, and he used to say, tell me your story from the beginning, what happened, how tough it used to be in Makkah when Muhammad sallallahu first started his dawah. Tell me the times when things were hard. So they remembered. And Khalid bin Arab, when they asked this Sahabi, everyone talked. When they asked this Sahabi, what's your story? He didn't say a single word. You know what he did? He lifted up his top and he showed out his back. And in his back were craters of holes where the Quraysh used to sit on him, and they used to get rocks, burn the rocks until they're red hot coal, and they used to burn his back to torture him. So the torture that the Sahabi used to go through were horrendous. But Muhammad ﷺ was protected from this via Abu Talib. Allah Ta'ala protected him, that no harm can come to the prophets in this manner. When this man of Irashi came, the Quraysh were having a laugh and a joke. This man does a deal with Abu Jahl. This man comes in and does a deal with Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, because they are the law, he said, no problem, let's do a transaction. Took all his goods, didn't pay him a penny for it. Man came next day to Abu Jahl, goes, where's my money? What money? What are you talking about? This man is out of town. He doesn't have any family or friends. So this man from Irashi, he comes to the Kaaba, stands up and he makes an announcement. Who will defend my right? I come to your town and your man has done this to me. I will let the world know that this is what the trade is like in this city. So Quraysh were having a laugh and a joke. They were like giggling and they're saying, let's do this. Tell the man that Muhammad will help him, because they knew the hatred that Abu Jahl had for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let's see if we can get Abu Jahl to get wound up. When Muhammad walks up to him and tries to help this guy, Abu Jahl is going to kill him. So they said to man of Irashi, go to Muhammad, he will help you, he's very good. So the man of Irashi comes up to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says, they say that you're a good man and you can help. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never refused anyone. He said, let's go. So they walk over to Abu Jahl's house and he knocks on the door and Abu Jahl opens up. He's looking at both of them and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, you need to pay his money. Abu Jahl, just stone cold face, says, do not leave until I bring you the money. Goes inside. Now, the Quraysh has sent a spy to go and watch what happens, because you're going to have a laugh and a joke about this. We want to see what happens to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This man is watching from a distance. Abu Jahl comes out, bag of coins. There you go. That's done. Man of Rashi is like, wow, this man Muhammad is like, so now two birds, I've killed with one stone. So this man thinking, wow, Muhammad's a very powerful guy, because when he goes back to his town, he will say, this man Muhammad, very good guy. Good propagation for Muhammad, good promotion for him. Afterwards, that man goes back and the Quraysh said to him, what happened? Did Abu Jahl sort him out? He goes, no. He told him to wait, walked in and gave him money. And that was it. So they saw Abu Jahl afterwards and they grabbed hold of him. Is that right? What happened? He goes, dude, you didn't see what happened. When I opened the door, there was Muhammad standing there, the man in Irash, and there was this thing standing over them that looked like a cross between a camel and a horse with fangs and red eyes, ready to eat me. Of course I was going to give them money. And that was Angel Jibreel that was sent to ensure that this man would pay up, so that this other man will see, Irashi man will see Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the control and the power that he has over them. So subhanAllah, this is the kind of level that the angels used to protect Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. Another incident that occurred was with Uqba bin Umayyah again. Now, this particular story was a man was asking the Sahabi, what is the worst thing that you have seen the Quraysh do to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Now remember, the Sahabi have seen different things. So they're giving different narrations and there's variations about what they saw was the worst thing that happened to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said one day, I saw all the Quraysh, all the chiefs, they gathered up together. And they sat there near the Kaaba and they were talking about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they said, look, we've been extraordinarily patient with this man. Okay? We've let him be. But he continues to attack our values, our idols, our customs, our politics, our religion, and enough is enough. So, as they started talking about this, they became very angry. Now, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam turns up to the Kaaba and he, as he always does, kisses the black stone, starts making tawaf. The Quraysh start sitting there, and because they're having this conversation, they're already wound up. So as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going around doing the tawaf, they start to insult him very, very badly. They started throwing many, many insults at Muhammad Sallam. On the third or the fourth dua, Muhammad Sallam got sick of this attack and insults against him and his religion of Islam. And he responded back. And he came back round the Kaaba and he saw them and he said to the Quraysh, "Are you listening, O Quraysh? By him who my life is in his hands, I am going to bring you slaughter." And they all went quiet. They all became scared. Now ask yourself the question, why? Why were they scared? You see, one thing you have to remember, when Muhammad SAW claimed for them that he was a prophet, and he was a prophet, anybody can claim that they were a prophet. They were actually people prior to Muhammad SAW even being a prophet claimed that they were prophets, but people just ignored them. But there was something very special about Muhammad SAW that other people could not match up to. And what was that? It was that Quran. It was that revelation he was getting from Angel Jibreel, that when he used to read the verses of the Quran that you read today, you don't understand those verses. You don't understand because you have a background of being born in this country, you understand English, you don't understand Arabic. But the Arabic language and the way that the Quran was delivered and packaged, the staunch enemies of Islam knew very well that this is from no man. So in their mind and in their heart, they knew that this guy, there's something powerful about him. So when he said to them, "I'm going to bring you slaughter," they did not take that lightly and they panicked. Immediately their body language changed and they said, "Look, Muhammad, take it easy, yeah? No need to be like this, yeah? You go on your way." Now they all went back, Muhammad SAW left, and the Quraysh went back and they met up with some of the other leaders and they had a conversation. And they found out, they got angry afterwards. You know, like sometimes you get into an altercation and you get into an argument and sometimes you think to yourself, should I have said this and that? You know, afterwards you're like, I let him get away with saying this to me. Why did I let him do that? I should have gave him this and I gave him that. That's how they felt. They felt that he threatened us and we bottled it like a bunch of chickens. We should not let him do that. So they became angry. So Uqba bin Mu'ayt, when he heard this, next day he went to Muhammad SAW at the Kaaba, saw Muhammad SAW, and he grabbed hold of him by the scuff of his cloth, of his clothes, and he started to twist it and strangle him. And he said to Muhammad SAW, "Is this what you said to us? You threatening us? Come on, let's see what you're going to do about this." And immediately Abu Bakr Siddiq came. And he was very sensitive about Muhammad SAW, and he grabbed his hand, pulled his hand off his clothing and pushed him back. He goes, "Are you going to kill or harm a man just because he says Allah is his Lord? For that? Is that the reputation you want? You were threatened just because a little thing like that, you decided to attack him. You want to kill him." So he made a point to him. So Uqba bin Mu'ayt just looked around and thought, people are looking, right? And he's trying to make me look bad that if this was going to happen. And immediately the Quraysh started to berate Abu Bakr Siddiq. So they started pushing him around and so forth. So Muhammad SAW was in so many different situations. The campaign against Muslims got so bad, Muhammad SAW described, there was never a time where I feared, or any man feared so much as I feared for my life and for the Muslims' life in Islam. There was never a time that I was afraid as much as I was at the time. And the starvation we went through. He goes, there was a time for 30 days and 30 nights we wouldn't even have food, because there was a time later on that they starved them. They wanted to starve them, not trade with them. And only Bilal used to hide food in his armpit. And that's the food we used to eat. That was it. Because if they knew that we had food, they would take it away from us. So, look, the campaign became worse. Muhammad SAW was pushing, and they wanted to talk to Abu Talib again. They said, this is not working. So 6, 7 of them got together and they went to see Abu Talib. And they sat around with Abu Talib again and they had a conversation. And they said to Abu Talib that your nephew is going beyond the limit. He's cursing our gods. He's cursing our ancestors. our forefathers, etc., etc. You need to stop this. You need to stop this, Abu Talib, because if you support him, then we don't want to be in a situation where we fight against you as well. Now, this hurt Abu Talib, not because the fact that they threatened him. He was upset because, remember, Abu Talib never became Muslim. This was still his religion. This was still his people. He still loved them. He still had affection for them. You see, it's different when you have a reason to go against someone. But because Abu Talib was never Muslim, and he didn't really care for that religion, he had no issues with these people. So when they're getting upset, this is not a storybook for him where it's good versus evil. He just sees they're my people, and Muhammad, why are you upsetting them? Right? Their religion is my religion. So he said, look, you go, I'll talk to him. So they called Muhammad sallam and so forth. So Muhammad sallam came in, and this is where they had this conversation. And we mentioned it last week as well. And this is where the famous ayah Muhammad sallam said, even if they give me the sun in my right hand, the moon in my left hand, I will never compromise the deen of Allah. Even if my head parts my shoulders, I will not. If that's my fate, that's the way it will be. So at that point, Abu Talib gave his support and made sure that there was no issues with the fact that Muhammad sallam is going to get the protection from Abu Talib and the Quraysh can't do anything to him. Abu Talib had made his point. This created a problem for Abu Talib now because he's made his point with the Quraysh. So Abu Talib went to his family, the Banu Abdul Muttalib, which is his extended family, and his direct family is Banu Hashim. He gathered all of them, okay, or at least the leaders of that tribe. And now they were not Muslim. And he said, look, Muhammad is one of ours, he's our blood. And these people, they want to harm him. We have to stick together. Do I have your commitment that we are going to protect Muhammad? Because we are now starting to see Abu Jahl torturing the slaves who have become Muslims. We've seen the state of Bilal. Bilal, they used to take him out, right? He used to be the slave of Umayyah bin Khalaf. They used to put him out in the heat. You know, last week, was it 40 degrees, maybe 42 degrees? It was hot, right? If you've been to Dubai or been in Saudi in the heat, you know what it's like. They used to put him out in the heat, lay him down on his back. So his back used to burn against the sand, and they used to take a big rock and put it in his chest to torture him. Then they used to starve him. Then they used to tie his hands up, stretch him out, and whip him, and leave the infection to grow. Sometimes they would tie him up, and they would put a noose around his neck, and they would just give it to the other people in their town, and say, just drag him around and throw stones at him. And all he used to say was, Ahad, Ahad, Ahad. Never gave up. Some Sahabi were pushed to their limit. And Bilal, Hazrat Bilal was one of those that no one could challenge the commitment and the sacrifice that he had made. So Abu Talib had gathered up the family of Muhammad sallam and got commitment, and they agreed. Looking at what was happening, they knew the danger was going to encompass Muhammad sallam, and that we have to make a choice. We defend him or we leave him. And they all agreed and took a vow that they were going to defend Muhammad sallam. Now, one very famous incident happened where the next stage of their attack was they wanted to challenge Muhammad sallam publicly about his belief, right? So instead of just trying to shut him up, they thought, okay, let's bring the conversation to the table. Let's televise it. Let's let the million of audience watch, and let's see what his answers are going to be. And I'm going to read it from here because the conversation is a very interesting conversation. The Quraysh had many demands. And this is a very important story because you as Muslims today, you have many claims. You have a claim that there's one God, yet you can't bring him in front of you. So if you wanted to prove to a non-Muslim, if you wanted to prove to an atheist or an agnostic, you can't exactly conjure up Allah and let them see him. You are unable to bring any level of proof to try to convince your party. You have a book called the Quran. You say it's the word of God, yet who's backing your claim? You say that there's a heaven, you say there's a hell. Kids will grow up eventually and they'll figure out, like, Father Christmas doesn't exist. Why does heaven and hell exist? You have all these claims. How are you going to back them up? So this is exactly what happened with Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response to this, that he said, even though that they had all of these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that if they had seen what they wanted, they would have continued to stray away and in their tyranny and in their error and in their sin, which is so true, isn't it? How many times have you had an argument or a debate and you're so right and you convince that person, and yet out of arrogance and ignorance, he doesn't accept your argument? So Allah Ta'ala is saying here, even if we showed you, you would carry on in your own ways, because he's referring to what happened with the Bani Israel. And so there were many ayahs that revealed about this. These ayahs refer to us as well. And Allah says in the Quran, and they swear by Allah with their mightiest oaths, with their greatest oath. We swear by Allah, we guarantee you, if you bring this, we will do this. If you show us, we will believe you. And they will give the mightiest oaths that if a sign came to them, they would believe in it. Allah says, say, signs are with God alone. And what would make you perceive that if such sign came, that they will still not believe? Supposing we turn their hearts and their vision upside down, they will not believe as at their first time. So we will leave them straying in their tyranny, even if we sent down the angels to them, and even if the dead spoke to them, and even if we gathered together all the things from before, they will not believe unless God wished it. But most of them are foolish. And I'll explain why Allah Ta'ala said them, even if we bring the past, even if we bring the angels, because this is what they exactly asked, right? So Allah Ta'ala then goes on to say, even those against who Allah's word has proved true will not believe, even if all the signs were to come to them, until they see the painful punishment. And that is the only time when everyone will truly believe. And by that time, the doors of Tawbah is closed. So don't get into that situation where you leave it way too late. And then Allah says, nothing prevented us from sending the signs. We could have sent the signs anytime we wanted, except the fact that the earlier people disbelieved in them. When we sent them the sign with the other prophets, they saw it, but they did not believe. We did give them Thamud, the she-camel in full view. We talked about the people of Thamud, that the she-camel, because they said what did they say to the prophet? They said, okay, if you claim that God is so true, bring us forward a beautiful she-camel the size of this that can produce milk for everyone in the town and this, that, whatever. So an impossible task. A she-camel that was given birth from the rock. And what did he do? The prophet? He made the dua. So Allah said, okay, fine. And there you go. And they couldn't believe it. And they still did not believe. They didn't like it. They tried to kill the she-camel. But we won't go through that story. That story's already covered. You can hear it on the previous talks. So we did give Thamud, the she-camel, in full view, but they used it for evil. We did not send signs for any purpose but to warn. And so Allah Ta'ala then says, and they said, we will not believe in you until you break forth a spring from the earth for us, until you have a garden of date palms and grapes, which you can make streams gush forward, or until you make the sky fall upon us in pieces, as you have claimed you will, or until you bring God and the angels before us, or until you have a house of gold cloth, or until you rise up to the heavens, and we will not believe in your accession until you bring down for us a book we can read that says, glory be to God, am I anything but a mortal man and a messenger? All of these claims, and this is exactly, if you get to debate with people, they'll say to you, okay, do this, day of judgment, all right, let's see, what's it going to look like, show us. People will challenge you this way. Now let's talk about the story, why these ayahs came down and what Allah Ta'ala is referring to. So the leaders of Quraysh, they met and they sat down together and they started to argue and they started to say, you know what, we need to debate with Muhammad. Send for Muhammad, bring him. So a man goes off and he finds Muhammad sallam and they said, bring Muhammad, we want to discuss with him about his claims. Muhammad sallam became excited. You know why? Because he thought, oh my God, my da'wah's actually worked. They're interested. So he rushed off into their council and he sat down with them and he said, please tell me, what can I do for you? What are the questions you have? So they said, oh Muhammad, we sent for you because we want to reconcile with you. So Muhammad was like happy, he's ecstatic, brilliant. We're gonna have some progression in our conversation. They said, look, we know of no Arab man that who has ever brought his people so much pain and agony. You have reviled our forebearers. You criticized our religion. You've attacked our customs. You cursed our gods. You divided our community. Some of them have followed you. They don't talk to each other. The mother doesn't talk to the son. The son doesn't talk to the father. It's a very unpleasant thing. And possibly you have done, and you created a rift between us. That's the reality, Muhammad. Now, and this is the first thing they said to him. They said, look, if you had come to say these things, and the reason why you say this is that because you want to put us up against the wall, put us in a very tight situation, a difficult scenario, which we are in at the moment, because you want money, then just ask. We will collect all the money in from the Makkah as a tax, and we will give it to you. If it's not money that you want, and you want leadership, prestigiousness, then we will make you a leader. But if it's sovereignty, that you want to be the king of our town, then we will put you in that position and we will make you a king. But if it's not that, and there's actually something wrong with you, like there is a demon in you, there's a jinn in you and you're possessed, then we will conjure up and bring up some of the best medical staff around Makkah, around Arabia, to treat you. Muhammad sat there and he knew this conversation is not going well. And after listening to them, Muhammad never used to interrupt them. He used to always listen to them and then he used to respond. So Muhammad said, everything that you have said, all of these claims, money, leadership, kingship, me being possessed, he goes, none of this applies to me. Not interested in any of this stuff. I have not brought you my message seeking money or honor among you or sovereignty. God has sent me as a messenger to warn you, to reveal a document called the Quran so that you can read it and understand it and follow its guidance to prevent a great punishment that's going to come upon you. If you accept what I have brought you, then it is good for you. You will benefit. If you reject it, then there's nothing I can do. I will wait upon God's decision between you and me, and who's right and who's wrong. So they responded to Muhammad ﷺ. They said, okay, if you do not ask anything for yourself, then ask something for us, right? The greedy sods that they are, right? Ask something for us. So you realize that there are no people with less land than us, nor any less wealthy, nor any with more difficult life. So ask your God, who has sent you with whatever he has sent you, this Quran, and ask him to level out these mountains, because Makkah has mountains around it. Level out these mountains, yeah, that are basically closing on us, right? That we've been becoming very claustrophobic in our land. So, and spread out our country, make it open, give us some rivers, because it's all desert, give us some rivers, give us some vegetation, and on top of that, bring back the dead. And we want you to bring back Qusay bin Qalab, the old ancestor, Muhammad's great-great-great-great-grandfather, Qusay bin Qalab, yeah? Bring him. And when he is alive and you bought him, listen to their ignorance. You would have thought if a man can bring a dead man back, that would be enough to be convinced. No. Bring him back, and when he is alive, then we will ask him whether you are true or not. You see the level of ignorance. When you bring him alive, then we will ask him that is he true or not. You already know that they're asking for claims and they're not really interested in what you have to say, what you have to do. This is stupidity. If you do what we ask and they believe you, meaning Qusay bin Kalab, the people from the dead, we will believe you and we will recognize your status with God and that He has sent you as a messenger, as you say. Muhammad ﷺ responded, again, this is not why I've been sent. I have only been brought you from Allah that He has sent me with, the Quran. I have informed you of what I was sent to convey to you. If you accept it, then that is your good and your good fortune. And if they're in the hereafter, and if you reject it, then I must wait patiently for Allah's decision, for Him to judge between us. And this is what we keep saying to every one of you, right? Follow Islam, follow Islam. If you do not follow it, if you do not pray, if you don't want to fast, you don't want to speak the truth, you don't respect your parents, then I will leave it between you and Allah. You may not believe now, but on the day of judgment, everyone will become a believer. But that does not mean that you're going to win. They responded, if you won't do this for us, then comes the next claim, the next ask. If you not do this for us, then take something for yourself. Ask your Lord to send us down an angel who will verify what you say. Look how stupid that is. So the angel comes down, you'll be convinced. But send him down to verify your claim. So he comes down and confirms that you are the messenger. And once he verifies you and he should make us leave you alone. Ask him to provide for us some gardens, some castles and treasures of gold and silver, and to take care of those needs we see that you have. Give you some things, gold, money. You're a poor man. For we see you engage in business and we see you earn your living like us. You go to work every day. But if the angel can come down and give you £1 million and give you a nice big house, you don't ever have to work ever again. That way we will know the favor and the prestige that you have with your God, if that is you are a messenger as you claim. And Muhammad responded back again, I am not going to do this. I am not the one to ask such things of his Lord. That is not why I have been sent to you. Muhammad was very clear about his message. I have been sent to announce and to warn. If you accept my message, then that is your good fortune here on this earth and the afterlife. And if you reject it, then I must be patient until Allah makes a decision. And then they responded back, well then, make the sky fall, make the day of judgment happen, as you have claimed your Lord can do if he wishes. We will not believe in you unless you do this. Now they're getting frustrated. So they start asking for even more stupid things. He said, that is up to Allah. If he wishes to do this, he will do this. They said, oh Muhammad, did your Lord not know that we will sit with you and ask you all these questions and make all these demands and requests we have made and so come forward to you? So Allah would not come forward to you and inform you how to respond to us and tell you what he would then do about us if we do not accept the message from you. Did Allah not come and tell you this was all going to happen and give you an answer for us? We have learned that you have just received instructions from a man of Al-Yamama, the next attack. Now they claim, they say, we have heard that you have been in contact with a man from Al-Yamama who's also got connections with the jinns. This is actually Musaylama. This is a man who claimed that he was a prophet from before. And we'll talk about him in the future. But they're saying that he had a connection with the man and he's feeding you information. He is feeding you information. And then they said, oh Muhammad, we will not leave you until we kill you. One of them said, oh Muhammad, we will worship the angels. We worship the angels. Now, part of their worship of idols was that they used to believe in angels, but they believed the angels were the daughters of Allah. That's how they used to think. They used to think the angels were the daughter, and Jibreel was the angel, there was a daughter of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they say, we worship the angels who are God's daughters. Another said, we will not believe in you until you bring us God and the angels beforehand. When Muhammad heard this, he had enough. He got up to leave. At the point when he was just about to leave, his cousin, Abdullah bin Umayyah, his first cousin, grabbed hold of Muhammad and said, wait. He said, Muhammad, your people have made certain offers to you that you have not accepted. Then they made requests for themselves so that you can discover your status with God, so that they can discover your status with God. But you did nothing. Everything we've asked, you've done absolutely nothing. Then they asked you to send promptly some punishment that will scare them, like what happened with Hud and Ad, for example, the people of Thamud, that they asked and the punishment came to them. Then he said to them, then he said to Muhammad sallam, by God, I'll never believe you until, and again the Quranic ayah talks about this, listen to his statement. He goes, I will not even believe you until you bring a ladder that you can go up, and I'm watching you go up to heaven. You will go up there and you'll bring a piece of document and you will bring it down, signed by God, saying that you are the messenger. And even if you do that, I will still not believe you. Just to finish off on this note, this is the thing, the hadith of hadith Qudsi, where Allah Ta'ala says, when he created Adam, he struck his left shoulder, his right shoulder, and they shattered. Black pieces on the left, white on the right. And he said to Adam, oh Adam, do you know what these pieces are? He goes, no. He goes, those on your left that shine into black pieces, these are your children who are destined for hell. They will never follow the truth. They will never follow the path of Allah, even if you show them every proof. They will never follow. They are destined for hell. And those on your right are the ones that will enter the paradise. You are going to, if you are in a situation where your heart believes, please raise your hand up for dua and thank Allah. Because some will never follow the truth. The ayah of the Quran that says, Summun bukmun umyun fahum larji'un, deaf, dumb and blind. There will come a point you'll be so ignorant. And we're talking about Muslim as well as the non-Muslims. The Muslims, that you'll be named by Muslim. And so many Muslims, they will, we're Muslims. Occasionally we'll fast, occasionally we'll do this. But they will love the dunya so much that the dunya will dictate to them what is right and what is wrong, not Islam. If the right of Islam just happens to coincide with the right of their dunya, they'll accept it. But if there was a conflict between what was right and what was wrong, they will leave Islam over the dunya, right? You have to be very careful. When you follow the path of Islam, stick to it strongly. But remember one thing, this path is a very difficult path to follow, and you can very easily take the wrong route. That is why you always need guidance. Just because you got your salah, because you got your fast and you got your zikr, doesn't mean that you're going to carry on the straight path. One must attain greatness in themselves. We talked about how you attain greatness by continuously pushing yourself to learn more and more and more. And that will ensure that you will stay on the straight path. Jazakallah khair, inshallah, we'll carry on next week.